Imagine walking into a church every Sunday, smiling at the man behind the pulpit, the very man who blesses your children, counsels your marriage, and guides your soul. Now imagine discovering that same man is a serial killer. This is not fiction. This is the horrifying true story of Anthony Stephen Tony Parrish, a man who wore the mask of righteousness while hiding a monstrous double life. Tony Parrish was no ordinary man. To his congregation, he was Pastor Tony, a devoted servant of God, charismatic, eloquent, and always available to lend an ear. He was beloved by his community in a small town in the United States. But behind closed doors, he was planning murders, stalking victims, and living a secret life as one of the most twisted killers the country had ever seen. Tony's descent into darkness didn't begin in the church. It started decades earlier. Born in the early 1960s, Tony grew up in a deeply religious household. His father was strict, often abusive, and obsessed with sin and punishment. That toxic environment planted the seeds of confusion in young Tony's mind, confusing control with discipline and power with righteousness. In his teenage years, Tony started showing signs of disturbing behavior, animal cruelty, manipulation of classmates, and a cold lack of empathy. But he also became intensely interested in theology. By his mid-20s, he had enrolled in a seminary and soon became a full-time pastor. That's when his two worlds began to collide. He mastered the art of wearing a mask. To outsiders, he was a man of God, but internally he battled violent urges he eventually stopped resisting. Tony's first confirmed murder happened in 1992. The victim was a young woman named Emily Carr, a local waitress who had confided in Pastor Tony about her abusive boyfriend. Weeks after that conversation, her body was found in a remote wooded area, strangled and posed in a symbolic position that suggested ritualistic intent. At the time, no one suspected Tony. In fact, he delivered her funeral sermon, even crying at the podium. Over the next decade, the murders continued. All victims were vulnerable people, women seeking help, young men battling addiction, or runaways looking for direction. Many had last been seen at Pastor Tony's church. Still, no one connected the dots. His position as a religious leader provided the perfect cover. Who would suspect a man of God? But what made Tony even more chilling was his desire to play God. He kept trophies, lockets of hair, personal items, even pages from the victims' diaries. He would later admit that revisiting these items gave him a twisted sense of control, as if he had taken not just their lives, but their identities. The turning point came in 2005 when a young woman named Rachel Mayers went missing after attending a late-night youth group session led by Pastor Tony. Unlike the previous cases, Rachel's father was a former police detective. He didn't buy the story that she had simply run away. Using his connections, Rachel's father launched an unofficial investigation. What he uncovered was terrifying. Security footage from a nearby gas station showed Rachel getting into a car that matched the one Pastor Tony drove. A warrant was obtained, and the police raided the pastor's home. Inside, they discovered a hidden basement filled with evidence, clothing from multiple victims, disturbing handwritten journals describing each murder, and photos documenting the killings. Tony was arrested on multiple charges of murder, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice. During his trial, he maintained a calm, almost smug demeanor. He quoted Bible verses. He preached repentance, but the evidence was undeniable. The court heard shocking details: how he used his religious authority to gain trust, how he chose victims who came to him for help, and how he meticulously planned each killing like a twisted ritual. Some prosecutors believed he saw himself as an angel of judgment, punishing those he secretly deemed sinful or weak. Tony was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The courtroom was filled with the families of his victims, people who had once prayed with him, shared meals with him, and confessed their deepest fears to him. The betrayal cut deeper than the crimes themselves. Even behind bars, Tony continued to write, not letters of apology, but manifestos, pages filled with religious rhetoric and justifications for his actions. He claimed he had been chosen by God to cleanse the weak. Authorities banned his writings from being published, fearing they might inspire others. This case shook the nation, not just because of the number of victims or the brutality of the crimes, but because of who the killer was. It reminded everyone that evil can wear a friendly face, that sometimes the wolf isn't just in the flock it's leading it. Today, the church where Tony once preached has been torn down. In its place stands a quiet memorial garden dedicated to the victims who thought they were walking into a place of peace, not a trap set by a killer in a collar. Let this story be a chilling reminder: trust is powerful, but it should never be blind.